Um, is it
Hi,
started?
everybody.
Hi, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Can you please put your phones on mute? No. Okay. Today, good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk today about awareness, understanding our awareness. In general, we all have some kind of awareness with us, and there are two types of ways we think about awareness, and the conscious and the unconscious kind. And I'm going to talk about that today and in a bit more detail. So let's get started. So why does it matter? Why do we really need to know about awareness? Well, have you been in a situation where you were you actually unintentionally said something or did something and that you didn't want, right? And regretted later. There are times where things like these happen, and we are not sure of what's going on, right? And then we did do some things on instinct, and then we later on think, oh no, did I have to do that? I could have done something different. And there are times where sometimes you feel like an expert in hindsight. So uh, things are happening, you don't do anything about it, but then later you become an expert saying, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Things don't really feel right. Sometimes things don't feel right, but you continue with it, but later on you're able to understand, okay, what's going on, what could have been done. So you become an expert in that particular situation after it has happened, right? There are times where you want to change your habits, move out of your comfort zone, but it doesn't work out. Now, would you like to know why it is that difficult? So our awareness has got to do everything with this, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to share this. Although this is not part of the traditional NLP curriculum that we teach, but I think it is very useful to have this understanding of awareness and how it impacts our emotions, our behaviors, our habits, and our life in general. So moving on, I wanted to give some kind of a definition of awareness, what it is, right? So now, for purposes of this discussion, I'm going to consider awareness as a realization of some of these things, like awareness that we are in charge of our minds, our thoughts, and emotions. This is in line with some of the guiding principles we talked about, the presuppositions of NLP. But awareness has definitely linked to that, how we think, right? Now, we can either live in the past or in the now. uh, and how aware of are we of our thoughts? Are we always thinking about our past? Are we thinking about our future? Are we thinking in the moment? So what is that? So what is that awareness, realization? So just that realization uh, of where how our thoughts are moving. Are we only thinking about just the past, what has happened, good or bad, or are we thinking about what's happening today, right, or what's happening in the future? So the realization that we have the choice to think about the things that are happening. That's awareness. um, Awareness is our realization that we can learn from our experiences and create our own future. So the experiences that we have in our life, so just realizing, okay, what kind of experiences we have had, what kind of experiences are we having today, what do we expect to happen in the future. So that realization of things is also awareness, right? Then the realization that we can change our current situation by making different decisions. So if you might be feeling that you are stuck, you might be feeling that you have no choice, you might be feeling that we don't have any options to do something different. Now, if that happens, we can actually realize, we can become aware of how we are thinking, how what decisions we are making. When we are making those kinds of decisions, what are the opportunities or what are the limitations we are creating in our life, right? Awareness is that's the purpose of awareness that I wanted to share today. And um, I wanted to spend a little bit more time on um, two kinds of awareness that we have. Now, this graphic kind of represents how we think, right? So we have a critical mind, or a critical aspect. So our mind is basically, it's not a physical distinction, but we can consider that our awareness, our thinking, our mind has kind of two portions to it, right? One that only focuses on the now, so a conscious thing, right? So for example, if you became aware of how you're sitting, how you're thinking now everything that's happening around you, so the feeling of your feet touching the ground, or feeling of your back touching the back of your chair. Now, until and unless I said that, you wouldn't have realized it, right? Unless I started talking to you about, okay, what were your thoughts, right? The first thoughts that came to your mind when you woke up this morning. Now you're not aware of that. It's you probably will remember it, yes, you will remember what happened, right? Or but you're not really aware of it all the time. So you're not consciously aware of everything that is happening around you, but there is some sense of uh, of safety, some sense of security that you feel. Yes, everything is happening. Um, so those kinds of things. So there is a split between how you think, consciously thinking everything in the now, versus keeping some things on the back of your mind. Now, when I say back of your mind, this is probably a very common term. When you say, okay, I had something in the back of my mind, I remembered something, but I have forgotten. Those kinds of things. So you're probably trying to bring things in your consciousness now, and you know that there might be an opportunity that this might be available to me if I remember later. So the mind actually has that split that it creates, right? And then there is this critical barrier that you kind of have in understanding, okay, this is something that I will be able to remember when it comes, and something that I need to know right now. So if I consider conscious awareness, right? So for conscious awareness, it's basically your mind thinking consciously, and realizing that my focus is in the now. I need to be aware of what's going on around me. What am I watching? What am I listening? What am I learning? And is it logical? Does it make sense? Does it fit a particular pattern? So you're kind of creating those links and making some logical understanding, creating an analysis of, okay, this is what was said, this is what is happening, is there a relation? So those kinds of things that you're looking at, what's happening in the now, is what is part of our conscious. Now, the challenge with that is you can only hold a very limited amount of information that is necessary in your conscious awareness for your current or now the situation that you are in now. So you can't be thinking about past and doing something now, right? Because you will not be able to uh, get what you want in that case. So you want to be focused on what's happening in the now, and to do that, you can have all the information that you need in your consciousness, and drive it. For example, if you were driving a car and every time you had to, okay, remember, okay, I need to press the brake now, I need to press the accelerator now, I need to turn my steering now, I need to look left, I need to look right. Now, if all of this you had to always think at every moment when you're driving the car consciously, imagine how hard it would be. You probably won't be able to drive the car, right? Or if you're doing some cooking at home, and you had to remember, I need to pick up the spoon, I need to pick up this, I need to do this, I need to do this. If everything comes, your mind will become overwhelmed. So what you need to understand is that the information that is needed for the current activity is what you are is what is needed in your current focus in your consciousness, and that is the idea behind your conscious awareness. Now, important thing also to remember is that it always sticks to your comfort zone. So when you're thinking consciously, you are making logical relationships and trying to understand what's the risk here, what's the risk there. Okay, should I do this? Should I not do this? Rather than just going with it, right? You're trying to create certain uh, certain patterns of behavior that you don't want to change, right? That's why I'm saying that your consciousness and your conscious awareness actually sticks to your comfort zone. It doesn't want you to change a lot. Now, on the other side, when I talk about unconscious awareness, it has got, there are lots and lots of things. Most of our whatever is going on in our mind is subconscious or unconscious thinking. Now, when I talk about unconscious thinking, why it is important is that it is responsible for everything that is happening in your life. Your unconscious thinking, right? Your awareness about unconsciously what are you aware about. So why are you how negative or positive your attitude is, what are your beliefs, right? What are your values? All of these are unconsciously driving you forward, right? Now your mind actually communicates with your brain. You can say brain or mind. I will use these terms as the same, but they communicate with every cell in your body. Now, if you have ever practiced mindfulness, or you've ever practiced meditation, or if you practiced any kind of mental well-being exercises, right? They try the scripts and the way they talk is say, okay, you need to think that you are passing that um, relaxation throughout your body, and you will realize that okay, that relaxation is actually going to my body. And that's something that has been experienced by millions of people, right? Now how does that work? Now if you could actually send relaxation to every part of your body, if I had to say okay, just relax, stop thinking, take a deep breath, and focus all your relaxation on your face, on your throat. Let that relaxation move towards your arms, towards your legs. If I do that in a different way, right? What you can do is you can realize that you are able to send that consciously. You can send that relaxation through to your every part of your body, right? But who is responsible for that communication? That's your unconscious thinking, the part of your mind that is not always aware of what's going on, right? Now secondly, it protects and runs the body. Now have you realized, suppose a lot of I think most of you guys have probably experienced, okay, you're either running or you see some hole in front of you, or you see some rock in front of you, or if you're driving a car and suddenly something comes up, you press the brakes, or you stop, or you jump, or you have some kind of a response to it, and that is sudden response. You can't really think about just doing it in the moment. Yeah, you have to suddenly press the brakes, right? You probably realize in your peripheral that something is coming, and you should suddenly move in front or move back, right? Or if there is some insect that suddenly flies over you, you'll just try and say protect yourself. Now who's responsible? Something is happening in your mind, right? That is making sure that you're safe, you are protected. And uh, that is the idea. That's why I say our unconscious awareness protects us and from any harm, right? Now if you're trying to do some exercises, or you're trying to stretch something, and you realize that your body is starting to pain, now you can still go ahead and do things in pain, right? Nobody's stopping you, but you want to, there will be some voice in your head which will say, okay, let's stop. It's not a good idea, right? Now sometimes you will do things by instinct. When you do that, um, you're you don't have time to think, you just think, just do it, right? Now where does that instinct come from? Now it is that understanding that there is something within us, within our minds, that will ensure that we are safe and we can get to where we want. That part of our mind is called the subconscious or the unconscious mind, and that's how we think unconsciously. Right now, how do we store our memories? Now, memories are things that can be either past memories or there can be future memories. Yes, you can create future memories. If you just think about, okay, you want to where you want to be in 1 year from now. You want to be going to your favorite destination for a holiday. You can imagine it. Now, that's also a memory. Memory is not only just past memory, right? Past memories are more real, surreal, I would say, because you remember some portions of it that's already happened, so it's easier to remember, but you can always create a memory. So memories are now another thing to understand is, how do you know if a memory is from yesterday, is from 6 months old, is from last year, or is from 10 years old? There is some way our mind is ensuring that there is a chronological order of memories, right? And it can retrieve your memories as well in that same order. So if you just recall, right? Just recall, okay, I want to think about some positive event, something that I remember that made me really, really, really happy last month. And like this, there might be a memory that come up and you start smiling, right? You start becoming happier. So what's happening there? How does our mind know where to go and fetch the information from? So there is a structure, there is something within our system, our mind, our that is storing all these memories and retrieving it for you when you need it. That's the idea behind your unconscious thinking. Now it's and you have to understand that all the memories that, so there are two kinds of memories. One that is short-term memories, things that you can immediately recall. Some things that you have to actually think through and remember, okay, this happened, maybe that happened. So things that you can immediately recall, they are kind of short-term memories that they, for example, what were you doing half an hour ago? You can immediately think and tell, right? What did you do? What breakfast you had this morning? You can immediately tell. But what did you eat last month? On the first Sunday of January. If you had to just remember, it will take you some time. Or what was the color of the room you grew up in, right? Or what was the color of the car? What was the make of your car? Sometimes you don't really remember, then you have to recollect, right? What was the name of my best friend when I was in year 3? And I will have to think about it. So things that are really behind that's not readily available, you have to put some conscious effort to remember. Once it remembers, it comes into your conscious mind, right? So if this is your subconscious mind and or unconscious mind, and if you remember something, it will immediately send it to your conscious mind, because now you want to remember it, you consciously remember. So both of them work hand in hand, right? They always work hand in hand. You have to remember that. Now, it is unconscious mind is in charge of all learning and change. Now, we call something called muscle memory, right? You've probably heard about muscle memory. Now, what does that mean? It means that you don't have to put an effort and things start happening automatically. Muscle memory can be things like, okay, you're cutting a piece of paper, or you're writing alphabets, or you're writing a paragraph, right? You're typing, or you are going bike riding. You don't have to think about how do I ride a bike. You just sit on it and start going. You're driving a car, right? Um, Talking. How do you know all the words in the English language? You've learned it, you utilize it, and it automatically comes. You don't have to remember the grammar. It all automatically flows through, right? Now, how is that happening? It is because you have practiced and practiced and practiced and changed what you did, what you knew, and learned new things and done it so often and so repeatedly that it has become part of you. You don't have to think about it before you go and do some things. Now, so that is all part of your unconscious thinking. That's how you learn. And until you practice a lot, consciously you practice and do things repeatedly, 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 your body starts learning those things, and it becomes part of you, right? And that's how the habits are formed. The most important thing that I wanted to share today is that our unconscious awareness is very, very obedient, and it is highly programmable for getting the desired results. I'll say that again. It is very, very obedient, and it is highly programmable for getting the desired results. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, if you start talking to yourself, what are you doing? So there might be an inner voice that comes out to you, right? You say something and then you can validate things within yourself. Okay, does it? You will know. There is a self-talk that you do, and who is with whom consciously, if you're trying to do a self-talk, who's that voice, the inner voice that is coming out? That's your unconscious voice, right? That is trying to tell you something, and you can actually have your own discussions with yourself, and you can actually request your, for example, when I was talking about mindfulness a bit earlier, send your relaxation. So it's highly obedient. It won't say no, I'm not going to send you give you relaxation, sorry. That doesn't want that doesn't it doesn't happen that way. It is really obedient, right? It wants to talk to you. Remember, you haven't spoken to your unconscious since childhood. If you This is the first time you're listening to it, listening to this concept, you can probably ask, right? Okay, hello, how are you? Are you there? You can ask these questions, then you'll probably know from inside, yes. You'll probably get that warm feeling, right? And or you would probably see something that will give you that understanding, or something that will tell you that yes, it is there. And when I say highly programmable, right, this is how habits are formed, right? They say you do certain things in a certain way, and your body adapts to it. If you do exercising, if you try and become fitter, for the next 30 days you say, okay, every day I'm going to do exercises or yoga, or I'm going to take care of my health for 30 days, and I would like my body to become this. Your body will learn, your unconscious mind will try and make it happen, and it will make it happen till the time you are consciously putting an effort to make it happen. It will respond to what you want. Okay, now that was the understanding I wanted to share about conscious and unconscious thinking. How do we use this information? Well, trusting your unconscious can make you very confident in situations, right? You can, if you're not confident about maybe public speaking, for example, you can trust your unconscious. If you know about a particular subject, just trust it, that it will come to you. And sometimes when you start talking, things start coming out. So that's where you have learned some things, you know some things, but you're not sure if you can speak or you can talk about it. But if you trust your unconscious, it can give you the information when you need it, right? The self talk, whatever we talk to ourselves, it's actually going to your unconscious, and you can give it permission to be peaceful and happy. Now, if you keep telling yourself, is a self-talk, I am very peaceful, I am very happy, and I'm very peaceful, I'm very happy. And you can ask your unconscious mind and say, okay, tell me all the times where I was very peaceful, I was very happy. It will immediately start showing up all the memories where you were peaceful or happy. It's not going to, it's not going to happen like, okay, tell me when I was last happy, and it's going to show you a sad memory, or it's going to show you an angry memory, right? Where you're really angry. It's not going to happen. It's very obedient. So you can give it permission. uh, if you practice meditation and mindfulness, you actually activate your unconscious thinking more. So when you do meditation and mindfulness, your unconscious mind actually becomes, it really wants that, because when you are doing that, like those kinds of activities, it is actually where you're getting more connected to your unconscious. That's where your unconscious thinking can generally really come to you. Changing habits. Now, habits are definitely unconscious things, right? You may have a habit every day in the morning to get up and look at your phone, or get up and do exercises, or get up and have a glass of water, or get up a glass of coffee every morning. It's a habit. Your mind has gotten programmed into doing things, but you have an option, you have a choice to make that change happen. And you need to work for it. You need to do things and it will change. So change happens unconsciously, right? So one day you suddenly you'll wake up and you won't feel like doing all the things you used to do every morning. You might want to feel something different, right? Because you've been trying to do things in a different way. Suddenly one day you wouldn't have to think about doing things consciously. It will automatically start happening. That's where your unconscious comes into play. Inner wisdom. Well, inner wisdom is important to know. About inner wisdom is sometimes we have answers to our own problems, but we're not really attaching, we are not expecting the answers to come from us, so we go out there and ask questions. Sometimes we know the answer, sometimes we're validating our answers. Now where does that wisdom come from? A lot of times I've heard that people don't listen to understand, people listen to reply, right? People listen to validate. Now where does that replying or where does that validation come from? How do you know so much, right? Where is that wisdom coming from? That's all part of your unconscious. So you can use that information, use whatever I've mentioned about this difference between how we think, how we act consciously and unconsciously, and you can use that information on a day-to-day basis. That's all I had for today. And if you have any questions, I can answer. Um, so I can recap a bit about what I've spoken today. So I talked about how we can use the information, right? We can talk about how it makes you confident. You can use it, you can be more peaceful, happy, practice meditation, change habits, use it inner wisdom. The difference between your conscious and unconscious awareness or thinking, right? How conscious awareness focuses on the now, it only holds information that's necessary. Unconscious awareness is basically how it protects and runs your body, stores, retrieves your memories. Every learning, a new learning or change that you have, habits that you're creating, all is part of your unconscious, right? There are other things as well of unconscious. If you look at the graphic, but this is kind of the summarized summary of it. And what is awareness? Awareness is primarily about understanding our realization about where we are today, our thoughts, our actions. Do we want to live in the past or live in the now? How we think, how about our experiences, right? And how we can change our situations by making different decisions. That realization itself about awareness is kind of that part. So this is in a very short summary of what we have covered today. Um, any questions
Not,
you guys have?
well, not a question. Am I audible enough? Just want to know.
Yes, yes.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So I think it's something that over a period now that everyone's obviously over 25, 30 years old now here. Um, Over the period, I guess everyone's gone through those two aspects. But when it comes to someone externally telling us, in terms of categorizing them, this stands for this and this is standing for that. That insight is
Mm-hmm.
probably what matters more. And each time, whenever that's something that you see like this happening, and you don't know, and you can't, you find something happening, and you can't find a reasoning as to why it happened, or you don't know, or you feel that you've done nothing wrong. What exactly happened? What exactly happened? So in that case, this insight that was here that we discussed here is uh, it will help. So only probably I guess what I would have done, or what I would need to do is take a step back, just half a second, maybe over a second, take a step back and just try and see if they're able to, or if I'm able to categorize this into one of this, and then automatically an answer would be there available as to why it happened. I think
I'm glad
that's
you got an answer. Thank you. Anyone else like to say something or has a question?
Mark.
Hey, Chandra, Rajiv this side.
Hi, Rajiv, tell me.
Hey, Chandra, you talked about like one example that when you wake up in the morning, how can someone make a difference between awareness and knowing? Because sometimes we know what's the thought which is going inside us, and
Mm-hmm.
we think that we are aware, or we it's like someone is more aware when he is not. So it is about internal awareness or external, or it's a whole. How to make a difference that if I'm aware or not, how can someone check at any moment whether he is aware at that moment or not, whether it is
Uh,
getting up from bed or doing anything.
yes.
Even when I am talking right now, how can I, what's your suggestion? How can I make sure that I am aware? I am completely listening to you rather than, because there are so many thoughts which are going on in my mind right now.
That's right. That's okay. So it's about practicing control, trying to understand how you are aware, right? So you don't always have to split everything in conscious and unconscious, because that itself, consciously doing that, is going to become a problem. What you need to understand is that if you're not getting the results you want in your life, are you doing things unconsciously that are resulting in the things that are coming to you?
Mhm.
Now, if, for example, waking up every morning, if you think that you should be doing physical activity or you should be reading something and you're actually doing something else, right? Then if you've been doing it unconsciously, just by knowing that if I do things differently, I will get different results, you have a learning. And that learning is, right now you know it, right? Consciously know it, but every learning becomes unconscious as well. So there is no difference.
Okay.
Everything that you have in your conscious mind or conscious thinking is automatically transferred to your subconscious. It's
So,
always there.
okay. So if you remember in the very first or second, I believe in first or second session,
Mhm,
you talked about to, monitor that when you want to do something and you did not do something.
mhm.
So your heart was saying that do this, but your mind said, oh, okay, don't do this.
Correct. Mhm.
Does it come as a part of awareness, or it is, because say early when I get up in the morning, I know I should not take a tea. It's not good for health. But even then I go and take a tea and then do the exercise.
Okay.
Uh, because so it's my heart, my habit says that, okay, go and drink tea. But my mind says, hey, it's not healthy. So don't take it. But even then I go and do it.
Right.
Is this what
Again,
you are? Yeah.
yeah. So see, you subconsciously, you know that it's not the right thing, right?
Hmm.
Now, remember I talked about comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
You want to stick to your comfort zone. So that's always the case. Now, if you want to stick to your comfort zone, you are not going to be able to make any change happen. Now, remember, unconsciously, the change only happens in the unconscious area. So you need to listen to your unconscious and get away outside of your comfort zone. Only then you will get the change to happen. So if you want to make that habit of not drinking tea, so consciously you need to stop it. And it will not happen in a day or two. To make it really happen, it needs to become like a muscle memory. You need to do it repeatedly every day in the morning. Do it for 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. Every person, normally people say that if for 21 days you do it continuously, it becomes a habit. That's not true. Some people can get the habit started in 2 days. Some people can start in 5 days. It is different for different people, but statistics says that if you do it for 20 days continuously, uh, before you get to the 21st day, it is already a habit. So it has changed, right? So you have to understand what is right and what is not for you. And your unconscious, if you ask your unconscious, you will know it is right or not. Now, making decisions is not conscious or unconscious thinking. Okay, what you're stuck is conflicts or making decisions. For that, you need to look at pros and cons. You need to look at ecology. Is it safe for you and your family, safe for you within yourself, safe for you and the society? So you need to make those decisions based on certain principles. It is not based on conscious unconscious thinking. It is based on, that's a different thing. But this idea here, it will help you realize that why you have not been able to make the change. What can you do to make the change?
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. To some extent, yes. Yep.
Any other question? Manish, I can hardly hear you. Tell me.
Is it audible?
Yeah, better now.
So I just wanted to know, in our day-to-day life, normally what happens, like, we have so much of thinking and we try to prove this is right. Okay, and sometimes whether it is conscious or unconsciously, we, act on that. We keep thinking that whatever thoughts are coming, those are right, and because over a period of time, then it becomes, more of a ego type of issues also at some point of time. Suppose if I say, okay, this is right, and people even sometimes, a lot of times say, no, no, this is not right, and again I do, and then at some point of time I try to impose or prove it. So how it is related to the awareness, and how can it be changed?
See, when it is a long-term thing, right? Ego and these kinds of behaviors of proving yourself right, they are deeply embedded in your belief system. When it comes to that, it's automatically always part of your unconscious thinking. Now, getting away from ego, you need to let go of. There are a couple of things you can do. It's not really related to awareness as such, but just being aware that you are egoistic in this sense, right? And if do you want to let go of that ego, consciously understanding that, do you want to let go of that ego? Do you want to let go of that feeling of being right always, of or always wanting to win, right? Not thinking about others, those kinds of things. If you're aware that you want to do it,
No, but
somewhere
in most
inside you.
sorry to interrupt, but in most of the time we even don't know, and we try that, and we think, okay, this is right, this is how it is going to be. So how to take it up? My conscious mind is saying, okay, this is right, my unconscious mind will also be saying this is right. Okay, so I am aligned with my own thoughts, but right or wrong, how do I validate it?
So it is not part of the awareness concept, but I can give you an answer to it. Is how do you know if it's right or wrong? Every decision has its pros and cons, right? um, I've talked about ecology before. Now, when you're making a decision about something, if it's right or wrong, you need to figure out if that decision is in line with ecology, in the sense that if there is a win-win between you yourself, within yourself, if you think it's a win-win, it's always going to be good for me, right? In every situation, a decision is going to be good for me. Secondly, that decision, if I'm making, it is good for me and for the other person involved or the other party involved. Now, that other person involved could be you, your friend, or your family member, or uh, somebody who's with whom you are dealing with it. Is that a win-win situation for both of them, right? Now, third situation is the third condition for understanding if it's a right decision or not is, is the decision that I'm making, is it good? It's a win-win for me and my society. Now, society can be your environment, means it can be you and your family overall, or you and your organization, you or your if your neighborhood, you or some large group with whom you are involved in, right? It is a win-win for them. And the last one is win for yourself and the planet, right? Is it going to harm the planet? Is it going, those kinds of things? So that's a global scale. But every decision you make, you need to weigh the consequences of the decision with these four parameters or these four things in mind. If it is a win-win for all of them, then go with it, and you will know it. Because you can't predict the future, you can but you need to be responsible for the consequences you create based on the decisions you are making. Now, I've seen a lot of people who will put the blame of the consequences on everybody outside. They make their own decisions, but they blame everybody else for the consequences. That's not cause and effect, right? So you need to, if you're making a decision, you need to accept that you are responsible for the consequences of that decision to all these four things, to yourself. So you could make a decision of harming your own body, for example, right? And not offending anybody here, but suppose you're smoking a lot, right? Or you're taking some alcohol or something that you shouldn't be, right? But that is harming your body, but you like it because you want to, but you know at the end of the day it's not going to be good for my lungs, for example, right? In smoking, you already have a lung problem, but you want to smoke. It's not a win-win for you and your body, but you made a decision. Now you don't want to go behind. You actually bragged about I'm drinking 20 cigarettes a day, and your ego want to satisfy that ego, but in general it's not the right decision to. So that's one example. So you can be a very, very strict person, right? Very, very disciplined, even and that discipline is causing problems to you and your team or your organization, the project that you're working in. You're not flexible. Is that the right decision? Now, because you've been thought of a person who's really well disciplined, right? Those things will actually become a challenge. So what you need to understand there is that it is always a good idea to ensure that your decisions are being made in a way that it is not harming somebody.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Is there any other questions? All right, thank you, everybody.
Hi. Sorry,
Yes.
Chanda, it's Aman here. How are you?
I'm good, Aman. Tell me.
Thank you so much for this info. Very helpful. I do have a question.
Sure.
So you said towards the end, your unconscious is obedient and it's programmable.
Mm-hmm.
If that's, I mean, obviously it's not a well-known fact because otherwise a lot of people would be practicing it. And what should we be doing on a daily basis to, I guess, to make a progress on that front?
When I talk about what can you do, there are things. It depends on what do you want to do. It depends on what result do you want. Right? I can in this forum
Sure.
I can give a very, very generic answer. Right? But
sure.
Depends. If you need to ask something personal, we can always talk later.
Absolutely.
If you're thinking about in a generic way, if you're thinking about you want to get a desired result, in that case, wherever and your habits or your behaviors are not giving you the results,
sure,
you need to do certain things differently, and that's where your unconscious will come in, because all learning and change is unconscious, right? You need to be able to respond to situations instinctively in a different way to get different results. To do that, you need to practice things consciously. You need to practice things till it becomes part of your unconscious. That's what I meant by obedient and unconscious. So what is it obedient to? It's obedient to your conscious mind. If you really want to, for example, if you want to lose 10 kgs in a quarter, right? You need to consciously practice eating differently, doing healthy exercises, and practicing a different lifestyle. If you don't practice it in a particular way continuously, your mind will not, your unconscious will always, and you would know inside, okay, I'm eating these many things, I'm not doing exercises, how can I become, I know I will not get the result I want. You can imagine, there is no harm in imagining what result you want, but if you can't really do the things that is needed, you won't get it. So that's where programmable means is, once you start doing the things differently, your mind will actually take it on, and it will make things happen for you in your body and outside as a result says.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there any other question I can answer? All right, 11:45. Thank you very much for today's session. Next Sunday, I'm going to talk a bit more about awareness, and from an unconscious mind perspective, so there are certain rules that govern it. And I'm going to talk about that. And they're called as prime directives of unconscious mind. Again, not traditional NLP, but it is very important to understand our thinking, how we think and act unconsciously, because that drives our behavior. So I'm going to talk about that next Sunday. Thank you everyone for joining today. Bye.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.